I forgot to take it off loop. Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. We're going to be going over the most recent Arsenal news and transfer news. So make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. And get in the chat and let me know how you guys are feeling on this Wednesday. For me, it's afternoon, but for you, it could be anything. So also let me know where you're watching from. That's always important as well. I meet people from all parts of the globe that watch the channel, which is always super cool. So let me know in the chat like where you guys are from as well. I have my little rack behind me again. It's not quite as organized as I would like it to be, but we are getting back to the norm. We have quite a bit to talk about on the show today. We're going to be talking about David Raya, as well as Lauren Balogun and Kieran Tierney. And in the last couple of minutes, there has been a little bit of news on Thomas Partey as well. So we're going to be talking about all that stuff for the next hour or so. I'll be going to dinner and leaving here at 5. So got to keep this a little bit tighter than usual. You know, sometimes we do like to just get on here and talk for a long time, and may not be able to do that today, but we're going to be getting as much chit chat as we can in the hour time that we have. I also pinned in the comments at the very top that I swear every single time I do a show, video, anything, somebody starts doing something wild right outside. It's really annoying. But I pinned at the top of the chat my Community Shield vlog. If you go, if you click on the channel and you go under vlogs, you'll see it there. But I did do a vlog for the Community Shield. Better late than never. But I was able to go to the game with my mom and dad, and it was a really, really nice day out. Of course, everything is better when Arsenal end up winning, but being able to take my family to Wembley and see a couple of you guys out and about and just enjoy the entire evening was so nice, you know. So I would love it if you guys gave that a little watch after you guys leave here, but the link is at the top of the chat if you guys are interested in it. Let's see, Kasire is saying, watching from Uganda, and much love to everyone. Question, is Arsenal ready to go for silverware this coming season? Your opinion? Yes, I think we're more than capable of winning silverware. I actually think we could have won silverware last season. I don't think it's a matter of if we have enough quality. I think it's just whether or not we have the depth and quality, more about the depth to go deep into competitions and also maintain our form in other competitions. I think Arsenal put a lot of focus on the Premier League last season, and they probably should have, because, you know, we needed to be in Champions League. But now that we've increased the depth and stuff like that, we have more players at our disposal. I do think you'll see Arsenal put a lot more emphasis on the Carabao Cup, on the FA Cup, and we're more than capable to win silverware for sure. I'm seeing Zambia. I'm seeing Washington, D.C. I'm also seeing another Zambia as well, which is awesome. South Africa, another South Africa, South Africa, South Africa, lots of South Africa. That's so cool. Dennis says, I'm from Sweden. Welcome. Seeing Louisville, Kentucky, which is, yeah, that's awesome. Watching from England, Paris as well. So you guys are from everywhere, which is super cool. And I love that because Arsenal is such a global team, and so the community is so global, and I just love meeting you guys from everywhere. But yeah, I think today, obviously, probably the biggest piece of news that came out over the last couple of days was David Raya as a done deal, as well as, you know, Matt Turner has been officially announced as a Nottingham Forest player today, and so that means that David Raya is not that far behind. Fabrizio Romano has said that, you know, David Raya should be doing his medical tomorrow, and Arsenal are pretty much in a race against time to get him registered for the first game of the season. So that's about midday Friday. They have to get that done, but they're probably working on paperwork today, and within, you know, maybe at the end of today, maybe most likely tomorrow after he does his medical, we'll get an official announcement from Arsenal around David Raya, especially because Matt Turner is gone. We don't want some freak accident to happen and we have to play Hine or Runnerson or something like that. So Arsenal will definitely get it done in that time frame. But David Raya is definitely not a signing that I had like etched into my brain as something that was possible at the beginning of the window. I've been very vocal about my thoughts on the goalkeeper position, and I still kind of maintain it still. Like, it kind of is that you have a number one and you have a number two, and the number two doesn't really push the number one. But maybe things are changing behind the scenes in the football world that I can't see as a fan. And so we've seen a couple of different teams try this in the past. We saw Donnarumma and Keylor Navas. That didn't really work out. We saw David De Gea and Dean Henderson. That didn't really work out. And so I wonder how it'll work out for Arsenal, because we even had a little bit of that situation early on with Martinez and Bernd Leno. And, Martinez made it very, very clear that he wanted to be the undisputed number one no matter what. And because he was not given that number one position, even if it was 80% 20, he wasn't taking it. He wanted that number one position. And so in the short term, I do feel like this could be really interesting in terms of keeping Ramsdale fresh, making sure he's on his toes, making sure that there's somebody really good pushing him and keeping him concentrated. But in the long term, I do have this feeling in the back of my head that somebody will have to go. And David Raya being the number one option when we first moved away from Bernd Leno, a couple of years ago, makes me think that this was something that Arsenal were desperate to get done because they felt like maybe they had missed the boat on this player and now they have a second chance. And so things could change. We don't always know exactly what Mikel Arteta and Arsenal are thinking. But yeah, also cannot see Aaron Ramsdale sticking around for a bit part role. So we'll see how it works out. But nevertheless, in the short term, we have two really, really good goalkeepers for a couple of different competitions that are really good with their feet. Really good recruitment. And so I am happy to see David Raya join the team. The depth in this team for me is something that I haven't seen in a very long time. And so I'm ecstatic. Remember, there was a time Ospina, Almunia, these guys were like the main guys at Arsenal. So, we are definitely in a much, much, much better position. Iman says, disappointed that we didn't get a bigger fee for Turner to Forest, but it is what it is. Yeah, I do think that that is one of the disappointing, and maybe I don't know. I do think that sometimes you have to build up your reputation in the market, but I was kind of hoping for closer to 15 million for Matt Turner. And it's like, well, where do you get that figure from? I guess it's just everybody is selling to each other and people are getting bigger fees than probably what they deserve. So I'm like, we should probably get a bigger fee. But ultimately, Matt Turner didn't play in the Premier League at all. And, I think he's going to end up being a number two goalkeeper for Nottingham Forest anyway. So we made a little bit of a profit, like 1 million. And then if certain things come into effect, then we'll get a little bit more. I'm actually not sure if he's going to be their number one or number two. I know he will be the goalkeeper against us when we play them on the first day of the season. But, they were looking at Kasper Schmeichel as well. And I think they've turned their attention to him because they're probably not going to go back in for Dean Henderson. And so for a number two goalkeeper, getting 7 million for him and then 3 million in add-ons is not the end of the world. I would just love to see Arsenal sell a little bit better in the future. I do think that there are other teams that are really flexing their muscles in this window in terms of selling, and Arsenal are not really getting in on that just yet. But nevertheless, it's not something that I'll lose sleep over. We haven't lost any money on Matt Turner. And so I think mostly the fee went to making sure that Raya didn't cost as much, if that makes sense. There's 245 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Oliver says, don't think Arteta cares about the long-term ramifications. He wants to win now, which is fair enough, because I think from the perspective of a lot of fans, he has to win now. There are some Arsenal fans that feel like he has to win a major trophy, meaning Champions League or Premier League. And then there are other Arsenal fans that just say any sort of silverware would be great. But the pressure is really on. And so for Arteta, it's important for him to have the right players in place, and it's fine margins. The difference between winning something and not winning something could end up being your backup goalkeeper. So if Mikel Arteta does feel like that is the margin that we need to, look at, then I'm fine with that, because I want Arteta to be desperate to win, because he needs to be, you know? Um, let's see. Tony says, I bet if Raya wasn't available, we would have just been fine keeping Turner this season. I think so too. I think Nottingham Forest being interested in Turner did trigger it, but I think also instead of going for another number two, we took that market opportunity to go for somebody better that we always kind of wanted anyway. And so I think everything just kind of came together in the perfect way to get us into a position to bring in David Raya. And for people that are wanting to know about like the fees, we've been able to secure David Raya for under 28, like just under 30 million, and the fee is supposed to be 28 million. 25 million base fee with, a little bit extra in add-ons. Brentford were very, very, very like adamant about getting 40 million. And so we were able to get them down quite a bit. And yeah, from my perspective, it's really good business, because if he does end up being our number one, let's just play a little bit of a game. If he does end up being our number one in the future, then, we will have gotten a number one goalkeeper for net 20 million. And then, if we were to move Ramsdale on, he's English, he's young, he'll go for a good fee. So, I think it's good business for everybody right now. Diallo says, Jess, as a fan base, we need to have an honest conversation about Tierney. In my opinion, he's out of his depth. We will get into the Tierney conversation a little bit later, because I have thoughts. I have thoughts. Amon says Raya was a good market opportunity. I agree. 100%. Let's see what else you guys are saying about this. Fan says Ramsdale talked about how he was injured during the games against United at home and Spurs away. So I'm glad we have this competition now. I do think that you could see that Ramsdale was dealing with a little bit of something. Like, first of all, the games against Man United at home and Spurs away, he was, especially Spurs away, he was outstanding. He really did keep us in that game. When you rewatch that game, if you did get a chance to, like, without removing all the emotion, you can see in a different circumstance Harry Kane or, Son bearing some of those chances, those point blank chances that Ramsdale saved. So I think he did really well in those circumstances, despite having little injuries. But that is something that we need to look at, because, if Ramsdale has these little injuries here and there, we should be able to rest him with Raya being there. You don't want people just continuously playing with injuries. Like, let's see. Boy says Raya just makes Ramsdale better, in my opinion. He does at the very bottom level. Like, if we get nothing else out of it, Ramsdale is a better goalkeeper. His best time at Arsenal was when he was fighting Bernd Leno for the spot, right? So yeah. Let's see what you guys are saying. Big Dipper says, I hope Ramsdale works on his mental game more than anything. The focus and discipline is not there. The ability is, in my opinion. I think one of the biggest, maybe complaints or criticism around Ramsdale is like this lack of concentration, and the fact that there are goals that go in that kind of feel like he should have gotten, or he should have kept out, and they go in. And so, like I was saying, like a couple of days ago, David Raya, in the situation that he is in at Brentford, where he faces a significantly more amount of shots, he is saving more than he should. And Ramsdale, facing very little shots, like at Arsenal, he is saving less than he should. So that could just be a little bit of concentration. It could just be, poor form, because, everybody goes through dips in form. But again, at this level, the margins are so fine. And so if it comes down to, dropping Ramsdale for a little bit because he's given up a couple of easy goals and bringing in Raya, that's kind of something that, maybe Arsenal are looking at. And again, this is a market opportunity that probably came about because Matt Turner was being looked at by Nottingham Forest, not necessarily like, oh, well, he gave up that goal against Man United in preseason, so let's go out there in the market and get rid of him. Like, I don't think it was that, but I do think Arsenal were like, this is a really good opportunity to make sure that if it does come down to it, we have another goalkeeper that we feel very confident in, that if for some reason Ramsdale needed to sit out for a little bit, either enforced by injury or not, they have somebody that they feel comfortable with. Let's see. James says, maybe Arsenal saw that Bayern couldn't afford Raya this year, so bought him to sell to them in 2 years and double the money. Maybe. I do think that they were definitely looking at that and they were like, okay, they can't come up with the money. Let's go ahead and jump in. But Bayern are having a very substandard window. I've been definitely watching in the shadows, trying to figure out what's going on with that. Bayern in my lifetime have always been a team that gets really good business done and usually has this ability to go to lower level teams in their league, bully them into giving them their players for cheap, and just monopolize the Bundesliga and have this incredibly strong team with a German core and world-class players sprinkled around that core. And they don't necessarily have that anymore. And I think Thomas Tuchel's a very questionable managerial selection for them at this stage. So yeah, very, very interesting. Easy says, having 2 quality goalies will work when both of them are equally good. It's easy to rotate and they will push each other. We have enough games to satisfy both. Dubetta says Raya and Ramsdale are very similar. Not sure who's the number one. I guess it's just whoever's in form. I think Ramsdale obviously starts the season and will probably start most games until we get to, the cups. But, we'll see. We'll see how it goes down because obviously from Arsenal's camp, people that are being fed information from Arsenal are telling everybody that, Ramsdale, it's fine. Like, it's no big deal. They're just looking for a number 2. It's no big deal. But from other people that are not being fed from Arsenal, they're being told that there's going to be no established number 1 and these guys are really going to be duking it out. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how things unfold for real. Cafunso says, Raya has excellent positioning. Ramsdale would be smart to watch him closely. Yeah, I think Ramsdale is going to be a lot more locked in at training from here on out. Let's see what you guys are saying. Lagoon says Raya will replace Ramsdale in 2 months. I think one of the things that scares me a little bit, not necessarily scares me, but I do think can be a trigger point of toxicity and is if Ramsdale early on gives up an easy goal, or something. I could see people being like, I want him drop Raya in tomorrow. And it's going to be very interesting because I do think people are already not in a good place with Ramsdale. I think there's a lot of residual negative feelings from the end of last season, especially the Southampton game in particular. And then what they saw in preseason, I could just see that there's kind of like an underbelly of negativity surrounding Ramsdale. And so I can see him making a mistake or a goal going in and it's blamed on him. And then people calling for Raya in quite quickly. So we'll see how it all unfolds. But I am excited about how this could work out. And, maybe there is a scenario where Arsenal could be kind of like one of the first teams to make this work. But I hope Arsenal know what they're doing because it's just historically not something that anybody has done. And I hope we're not overcomplicating things for no reason. Diallo says, Jess, I watched the scouting videos on Raya by Arsenal Vision podcast. Main thing that came up was his weakness diving left. That's it. He can pin it everywhere. Fair enough. Tony says people doubting Rams after the Foden shot and Rodri corner saves have some shame. I think the thing about Ramsdale that's his strongest suit is back against the wall, having to make multiple saves, difficult saves back to back to back. Like that's kind of what happened against Manchester City. And that's what he's really good at. When we were, City away, Liverpool away, Spurs away, Leeds away, in games that we weren't quite at our best, like if he had to make saves back to back to back, he was like locked in, especially like away from home, like back against the wall, like he was definitely in that. it's when we're at home and things are a little bit easier, the lack of concentration. And so I never really doubt his ability to like get stuck in when we're just like under the, we're under it. It's about the times where we're cruising 2-0 and then, they have a random corner and it goes in off of some bobbly crap that, he probably could have gotten. And then all of a sudden we're under pressure for no reason. That's where I question him a little bit, but not when we're back against the wall and he's making saves back to 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 back back. So yeah, it's just one of those. But yeah, there's 400 of you guys in here, so make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel while you guys are here. Again, like I said, we're gonna kind of go through these a lot quicker than we usually do, but obviously you guys know I'll be back sooner rather than later. Let's talk a little bit about Folarin Balogun. Arsenal rejected a 40 million euro bid for Folarin Balogun from Monaco. And reading everything today is that Monaco are going to come back in with another big bid. Now, 40 million euros is like 34, almost 35 million pounds. And so that is to me like a respectable starting point. I think, if we're looking to get somewhere closer to 50, if we start at like 50 and pounds, and we can get somewhere around 40, I think that that's a good deal. And so I think the issue with Inter is that they were coming in with bids like around 25 million pounds, even maybe a little bit lower. I think their initial bid was 25 million pounds, or 25 million euros plus 5. And that is completely unacceptable for Folarin Balogun, and they should actually be ashamed for putting that up there, but now that Monaco has come into the frame, and the reason why that they're interested in Folarin Balogun is because Breel Embolo has ruptured his ACL, like he's gone for a long period of time, and they've also been able to sell because Disasi has went to Chelsea. They have a bit of money to spend on a striker target, so they're in for Folarin Balogun, and they came in with a good bid, a good starting point. And so now I guess Arsenal are waiting to see what Inter are going to do. Reading what Inter are preparing a 35 million, I think it's 35 million euros, which is still less than what Monaco have put in. Inter are continuing contacts with Arsenal for Folarin Balogun. A bid of 35 million euros is ready. Balogun can already see himself as an Inter player. The issue is that that's still lower than what Monaco are willing to offer. And Monaco are said to have already spoken to the player and have some sort of personal terms already agreed. So I don't know if 35 million euros, which ends up being around 30 million pounds, is going to be good enough. But it seems like Inter are still in the race. But the reason why they're not going that high is because they feel like they have the player. And if we cast our minds back to the beginning of the summer when we were dealing with West Ham, Manchester City for Rice, it makes sense from an Inter perspective if they feel like they have the player to start off as low as possible, despite Monaco being really interested. So I think they're gonna have to get much closer to 40 still, though. Like, I just can't see a world where Arsenal just accept 30 million pounds when we should be getting closer to 40 probably for Folarin Balogun. And so I still think that this one's going to kind of like go on a little bit longer. But Monaco coming into the picture is a good thing because it does put a little bit of pressure on Inter. But because Folarin Balogun seems to be quite set on going to Inter, that does weaken our negotiating power just a little bit. So we'll see how things wage on. But my only concern about this one is I feel like if we were going to bring in an attacker, this at the very least would have to be something that's sorted. And, the longer that Balogun and Inter mess around, the, likelihood of us bringing in another attacker, I think the window becomes a lot smaller. And then depending on I think my feeling on this is that I do think Mohamed Kudus is waiting to see if another team other than Brighton are able to sell quick enough to have the funds to bring him in. That's why when, the initial exclusive from Ornstein came out about how, the deal was kind of like close, but they want, assurances from the player, and there's still details to finalize. It was basically just an agreement between Brighton and Ajax, no agreement with Kudus. And why would Kudus be not signing the personal terms? It's because they would need that in order to finalize the deal. And maybe he's in talks with not just Arsenal, it could be Chelsea, it could be Man United, and he wants to go somewhere a little bit different than Brighton. Maybe he's not 100% sold. But the longer it takes to sell Balogun, I do think that window will close quite quickly. So I'm guessing there, a little bit. It kind of feels like that could be the case. I mean, why wouldn't Kudus just go ahead and do the personal terms? The only thing I can think of is he's waiting on another team to come in. And so let's just see how this all unfolds. But Arsenal, even though I do want us to bring in another attacker, I don't want to do it like I don't want to do it quickly and then give up any sort of additional money for Balogun. So my priority would be to get as much as we can for Balogun, but hopefully everything works out in a way where we can move Balogun on and also still bring somebody in. So yeah, James says get Kudus to finish this window and replace Eddie next year with a massive signing. Aha says apparently Kudus wants a release clause, but Brighton don't. Jesus. Well, good luck with that. Diallo says, and the thing about going to there's another part. Yeah, that's a really interesting point too, is that if Kudus wants this release clause, I wouldn't be surprised if he wants it because of what he's seen with Caicedo, because Caicedo's situation is so messed up and he wanted to leave in January. They wouldn't allow him to leave. I don't think Caicedo's agents did him any favors either, but I do think that players at this point, when it comes to going to Brighton, they want to know that they're going to be able to go somewhere quite quickly. So if they have a good season with Brighton, they want to be able to move ASAP, and Brighton, I think, are toggling kind of like that identity of, are we going to kind of stay a selling team, or do we want to bring in these top talents and try to keep them? And yeah, I can see them struggling a little bit to, recruit somebody like Kudus without giving him an out. So we'll see how that goes. Diallo says, just with Flo, Arsenal will have to hold their nerve. It would be so tempting to accept lowball bids, but this will be our biggest sale this summer. We must stand firm. I agree. If this is the only big sale that we really have, we have to hold firm. We can't just fold up just because Inter, want him for cheap. Either they want him or they don't. And I know Inter have money. I just feel like they're being cheap. Nico says Arteta shouldn't just freeze Balogun out the squad like this. Course that lets clubs know that they are actively looking to get rid of him and can't really demand the fee that we're looking for. Yeah, I hear that aspect of things as well. I think, Balogun did spend, quite a bit of time in the team, on the USA tour in particular. And then he was kind of like out the team once we played Barcelona or, Man United. I get that. But I do think there is some bad blood between the two. I don't think Arsenal would be particularly happy with some of the social media things that, Balogun is doing. I think he's making it very, Arsenal can try to force him into the team, but ultimately Balogun's doing quite a bit to make it very obvious that he wants to go. So I think from Arsenal's perspective, they're just like, we're just going to put you off to the side, because right now, in terms of the team, it's more important for the team and the guys that want to be there to be in that team fighting together and not have somebody that's actively making it obvious that he wants to leave and kind of having like a stinky attitude. Like, you know what I mean? So I can understand why they froze him out at a certain point, because it wasn't even like he was making it discreet. Like, he's being very, very like obvious that he wants to go. And it's, why would we give him a platform? Tony says Flo going to ball wherever he goes sounds like we are going to get a decent fee or reduced fee plus clauses. Either is just fine. And that's another aspect of this whole thing, is that maybe Arsenal would accept something closer to 35 million pounds or euros from Inter, if that means that he won't be in the Premier League next season, like all in our face, but also we have sell-ons and buyback clauses and stuff like that. So, Balogun is somebody that in the next 2 to 3 seasons will be in the Premier League playing for one of our rivals. I guarantee it. So you want to make sure that you have something in there that protects you just a little bit. So if he does end up going for 80 million or something like that to Chelsea, that we get a healthy chunk of that. I guarantee it that he will be at one of our rivals. The way he's moving, to me, I think that's what it's going to be. Blaze says just Chelsea and Dortmund are also interested in Kudus. A lot of people are, though, that the winger market is very, very poor. I don't think there's any obvious answers for Arsenal's problems in the winger market. So Kudus is going to get a lot of eyes because, one, he's forcing his way out, and Ajax have already brought in his replacement. So he is actively on the market, like he is out. He can play multiple positions. He has the physical attributes to be something special. He's young, and he wouldn't cost that much, So I would imagine a lot of teams are looking at him, and Arsenal are one of them. Arsenal are definitely one of them. Let's see. Tom says Brighton are getting a bad rep for overpricing their players. There has to be a balance to it. Like, you're Brighton still, so most players are going to go to Brighton to, get to the Premier League, play attractive football, increase their profile, and then go to one of the big six. And it's going to take, I think, a while for Brighton to get to a place where they can attract these players and they won't be trying to leave within the next year or two. It's just kind of the game, so they have to find a healthy way of doing it so that they can still attract players, because players want to be able to leave when they want to leave, and they don't want to be priced out of moves the way that Caicedo has. And Caicedo will eventually end up being a Chelsea player, like within the next couple of days. But just the way that it's gone on, like, it's not attractive to agents and players, I don't think. So yeah. There's 444 of you guys in here, which is amazing. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. Clock Orange says, just we lack a left center mid and a right wing. We can wait for a striker and get one in Jan. Again, I think you say this on every single show, that you think left center mid is something that we lack, but we don't. We have Rice that played there at the weekend. We have Havertz that plays there. Sociedad can play there. I'm very adamant about this point, that just because we don't like the options that we have there, or we're not sure about them, or we just want somebody else there, that doesn't mean that we don't have players to play there, or that the club hasn't addressed that position. So I'd be very surprised if we brought in a left center mid. I think one of the big reasons why Arsenal are interested in Kudus is because he can kind of play there and also play right wing. But the main thing that we need to look at is right wing, I think, or another attacker that can play centrally or off of the right, and on the right. I think left center mid for me is people still acting like we need it, is more just, well, I don't think Havertz can play there. And if you've seen throughout preseason, I don't think Arteta just played him there for shits and giggles. You know what I mean? I think he played him there because that is a position that he will play. You know what I mean? So yeah, Aman says, I think the reason we are slow on Kudus is because we have a lot of players we need to sell. We have 34 currently in the squad. We can also see surprise sales, in my opinion. I think surprise sales are there every time I suggest that certain players would probably still go if good fees come in. People balk at it. And I'm just like, I just don't think Arsenal are as keen on players as you guys are. I think if the only reason why certain players are still here is because the bids that we expected to come in didn't come in, and so sometimes you don't want to advertise that you want players to go, because if you don't sell them, then it's not great to have had somebody in the shop window and then bring them back in. But I think I can name probably 4 or 5 players that fit that description right off the top of my head, where if a sizable bid came in for them, they'd be out the door like that, even though a lot of Arsenal fans feel like they are a part of the fabric, which I don't actually think that they are. So there you go. There you go. Diallo says, guys, Brighton are doing exactly what we need to do. They are a super run club. They hold their cards. Fair enough. Make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Again, we have to go through these a lot quicker than we usually would. because I'm going out to dinner. So we're gonna just keep trucking along. But I want to talk about Kieran Tierney. He's been subject of some attention this summer as well. He's actually somebody that I thought would be out the door very quickly. As the season kind of ended, I thought, yeah, this guy is going. Because he just didn't quite fit the system. He struggled inverting. I think Kieran Tierney is a very talented player under a certain type of system. Like, I think the way that we play now doesn't necessarily suit him, and that doesn't mean that he's not working hard and he's not playing well. But I think that if the right type of bid came in, he'd be out the door. And just because he's still here doesn't necessarily mean that Arsenal have closed the door on people coming in and bringing him and getting him. Tierney and Emile Smith-Rowe and Thomas Partey are still, in my mind, players that could potentially still go, depending on the fee. I don't think that they're like nailed on as people are saying that they are, but that's just me. And they're consistently subject of interest. I don't see interest for Saka. I don't see interest for Ben White. I don't see interest for any other players, but players that are consistently linked to moves, or there's a little bit of question marks around people coming in with bids and stuff like that. I do think that they're a little bit less like, we have the guys that were always like unsellable. We could never sell these guys. I think there's a level right below. And I think some of these guys are in that level right below. But Tierney, Real Sociedad want to sign Kieran Tierney on loan. The Scotland international, who has also interest from Newcastle and Aston Villa, did not start any of Arsenal's preseason matches. Sociedad will be in this season's Champions League. And so I know Amy Lawrence said Arsenal may have changed their stance on selling Tierney this summer, but I feel like that's more of a guess, because he's still here and he's playing in preseason more than anything. But again, there's a difference between you're out the door. Like, Rob Holding is somebody that is being actively like pushed out. He's not playing any minutes. The minute Timber came in, he was just gone. Him, Cedric, Pepe, Nuno, Sambi, they're being actively pushed out. Then you have this other layer of players where it's like, we're not actively trying to sell them, but if the right bid came in, we take it. And Tierney fits that. I think there's, he plays really hard. He'd be a really nice option to have, but I would not keep him if 35 million bid came in from somewhere. Now, Real Sociedad want him on loan, which I think is totally unacceptable. I know that, they're in Champions League and maybe he'd be interested in going there, but why would we just loan him out unless we're just trying to minimize the squad numbers? So this is not something that I necessarily feel like will happen, but the fact that it's getting the amount of attention that it is, like, if it was something that we were just unwilling to look at all, or, we would know. But even I think his name is Mateo Moretto from Ravello, who does a lot of Spanish, transfer information. Like, he's always like on top of it. Said that ongoing talks between Arsenal and Real Sociedad for a loan with an option to buy for Kieran Tierney. That came out yesterday. So I would hate for it to be an option to buy. And I do feel like this is a last resort for Tierney. I don't know if maybe we spoke to Newcastle and they said we're not quite as interested as we thought, or we're not as interested at this price. And then we just kind of went down the pecking order, and Real Sociedad were willing to offer a loan and option. And we're like, oh, well, we need to minimize the squad. But that would be very shocking to me for us to allow Kieran Tierney to go on a loan with just an option. I feel like an obligation would need to be there or something like that. But just to get him out of the squad, that feels a little bit extra, because Kieran Tierney still offers something in the team, even if it's at like a very like squad option level. But this is something that I did not foresee. And I wonder if Arsenal are maybe getting a little bit desperate too, because we haven't really been getting that much interest in some of our players. So, but this squad needs to get down. And like, with Kieran Tierney, if you can get, Real Sociedad to at least pay some of his wages, that could be useful. But I wouldn't be that happy to see this happen, to be honest. I'd like to see him go on a permanent deal with a decent fee, because I still think Kieran Tierney has quality, but maybe Arsenal have different ideas. Saida says we will always get broke clubs trying to buy our players. Mulo says, I think Tierney was one of our better players during preseason and looks to have learned that inverted role more. I'm going to be really honest with you guys. I think that maybe when I watch the game, I don't see what other people see, but I find myself being frustrated with Tierney constantly hoofing the ball up the pitch. I think he lacks composure in moments of pressure at the back. And so I think sometimes people conflate working hard and being good for what we're trying to do. And I find that it's not necessarily that I feel like he's looking like a player that should be playing at Arsenal. I think he's just playing really hard, and giving passion and effort. And, I think there was against Barcelona in his cameo, I thought that was pretty good. But for the most part, I've found that I think that we have much better options. And Timber playing there, we know Zinchenko, as soon as he's fit, he's going to be playing there. Kivior also plays there. Tommy also plays there. There's a buildup of players there, so I don't know if I necessarily feel like he was one of our best players in preseason because he learned the system and learned the way to play. I think it was that Tierney looked fresh, he looked fit, and he looked like he was giving 110%. And oh, by the way, players tend to do that when they are in the shop window or they know other teams are looking at them. So that might sound harsh, but it's the truth. I just don't see a world where Tierney gets a lot of playing time or really goes up the rankings in the left back situation. I mean, Arteta would rather play Timber there. And of course, Timber is superior to Tierney, but he's not a left back. Anybody that could play there plays there ahead of Tierney. So yeah. Legume says, whether it's right or left center, right, left, or center, Timber has to start. Fan says, I'm surprised he hasn't requested a transfer since he's fourth choice left back now. La Volpe says, sell Tierney and move on. Yeah, I kind of agree. LJ Brown says, yeah, alone is not good enough. You're right. Why does everyone get cheap for Arsenal? But when we want to sell a player, they overprice us. Yeah, it's one of those where I think you have to gain respect in the market. And I think we've been quite unserious in the market for a long time. But with Tierney, I just don't see a reason to loan him out unless we just want to get eyes on him or something like that. But, there's also maybe Arsenal want to just get certain guys out of the team and open up some space. And maybe Tierney is one of those. Let's see. Holdini says Tomiyasu has fell off a cliff. He is awful now. I think the thing about Tomiyasu is that he's going to be a tool that we use in specific moments, but we don't want him playing a lot. And he's limited. He's not limited technically. How do I say it? He is kind of limited, in certain ways, but what he can do is if we need a shutdown defender in the last 10 minutes of a game, I think Tomiyasu would be a good player to have in the team. So if it really came down to it, and I had to look at, Tierney or Tomiyasu in terms of okay, who's going to be that squad option that's going to give us a little bit of something different when we need it. I actually think what Tomiyasu offers is going to be more beneficial to us than Tierney bombing up the left-hand side. If we're talking about variation that players can give us. So even though I do think Tomiyasu is somebody that if a significant bid came in, we would take it. I think that he offers something that we'll really need next season more than Tierney. Tomiyasu offers great 1v1 defending, physicality. He's more athletic. He's just a better defender. And when we get into those latter stages of Champions League or we're in a cup game and we really need to shut things down, I think we'll use Tomiyasu a little bit more than we use Tierney. So there's that. But Tierney has played hard in preseason, like, and he has looked good, but I don't necessarily feel like it's changed my feeling on whether or not he should stay. I still feel like, yeah, if a good bid came in, I'd sell. So yeah, Austin says Tommy is a player that needs to play to be better, not an amazing bench option, but love his back four cover ability. Bendover says he's faster. Olu says Tierney won't get into the first 11 at City or Liverpool, but y'all, Tierney fanboys won't let us rest. He's not good enough if you're aiming to win the league. I think like looking at the different levels of like him to Timber, you can just see that like there is a step up, that we're trying to get to, and like the types of players that we need to be bringing in are players like Timber, and Tierney is a couple of steps below that, even though he is a good player. Like, you can be a good player but not be good enough to play for Arsenal at this point, and I think Tierney fits in that category. He could be a decent squad option, but yeah. Johnny says when Zinni gets back, he's straight in. Timber on the right, White out, and deluxe fullback and CB reserve. We have 2 fullback inverted machines. We are ready for City like that. I mean, I just don't see where, Tierney gets in, so there's that. Harry says people say Tommy's awful. We did forget about him versus Salah at the Emirates. I think Tommy offers something. What he offers to me is more valuable than what Tierney offers. But again, I'm not Mikel, so Mikel can think something different. But like Arsenal in ongoing talks with Real Sociedad for a loan for Tierney is shocking to me. Like, not because I don't think Tierney should go, but because I think he should go for something better than a loan with an option. Diallo says Tommy is recovering from a long-term muscular injury. At least we know Arteta signed him. We can also play. He could also play at CB. Diallo, thank you so much for your super chat. Says Arteta outers are the only ones banging on Tierney. Yeah, I think there's certain players that when they're out of the team, a certain side of the fan base attaches themselves to them and says that's the player that should be playing, when it's really obvious that they shouldn't. Like, I thought it was actually kind of painful to hear people talk about like Zinchenko like he was like a pauper, or like he didn't play professional football last season. Yes, he made mistakes and he wasn't great defensively towards the end, but his inclusion in the team is a huge reason why we went from a top 4 type team to a title contending team. And so it was strange hearing people talk about Zinni the way that they're talking about him. I was like, damn, and acting like him and Tierney are on the same planet. They're not on the same planet, but Tierney can be good for somebody. Aman says Tierney is a good player, but he doesn't fit our system and he's 4th choice. I think that's like literally as clean as you can make it. Bendover says those bombing runs and aimless crosses don't work anymore. I think that's what frustrates me, is sometimes he just kicks it and I'm just like, can you not just relax for a second? So yeah, it's just one of those. I mean, I think you have, like, in terms of fullbacks, you have Zinni, Timber, and White, and those are like our main 3. And then you have Tomiyasu and Tierney that are kind of like these backup options. But how many fullbacks do you need when we know Kiwior can also play there too? So yeah, so we'll see. But I don't want Tierney going on just a regular ass loan. I think that sucks. Diallo says, sorry. I'm sorry that I've been so harsh on KT. Just true. I agree with you, but I understand why people don't agree, because people are very attached to Kieran Tierney. So I hear that 100%. There's 500 of you guys in here, so make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now we have to talk about, because those are the 3 stories that I was going to talk about, and I was just going to dip out from there. But I have to talk about Thomas Partey, because he's being linked again. But yeah, this is what you guys are saying. Dutch rumors, the holdup on Mohamed Kudus to Brighton is the release clause issue. Kudus wants one, Brighton doesn't. So cool. So that's kind of what you guys were saying earlier, which makes a lot of sense. So Thomas Partey, Juventus have said to come back in for him in the last week or so, which is kind of like, okay, I thought we said like you need to go away, because like, Juventus is cheap. and they're never going to pay the 40 million that I think would be the requirement in order for Thomas Partey to leave this summer. Because again, you can't just move Thomas Partey on without any sort of like backup option, or like not a backup option, but somebody to replace him. And so the window is slowly closing, and Juventus are sniffing around Thomas Partey. And this is coming from DiMarzio. And this is specifically Wet Frund. I don't know him, but saying Juventus talked to Partey and his agents a month ago and again in recent days. Now Juventus want him, but they will focus on Thomas if they sell Zakaria to Monaco. And I wonder if this is all like a trickle-down effect of certain things. So the player is not blocked from Juventus. They know that they can get him if they want. So here's the thing about this is that I do think that these are a lot of circumstantial situation. Like, this is not Thomas Partey is definitely going to Juventus or anything like that, because one, they don't have the cash. Like, I just know that they're not going to be able to come up with something realistic. They wanted to offer 20 million before. That is nowhere near good enough for Thomas Partey, right? But maybe because the only reason why I'd see them wanting to bring in Zakaria is because maybe they'll lose Yusuf Fofana. Because I don't see why you would want Zakaria if you already have Yusuf Fofana. And he has been subject of quite a bit of transfer, talk, Fofana. So maybe they're like, okay, if he leaves, then we'll bring, Monaco will bring in Zakaria, and then it'll kind of trigger this domino effect of like Fofana somewhere, Zakaria to Monaco, and then Juventus trying to bring in Thomas Partey from Arsenal. I wouldn't be surprised if Thomas Partey would be open to going to Juventus. Like, it is what it is. Like, that's not my issue. My issue is that they're never going to come up with 40 million. And so they can want the player all they want, and the player can want to go all they want. But without a substantial bid, which again, Saudi clubs were only willing to go to 30 and Juventus were only willing to go to 20 at the beginning of the window, they would need to come up significantly. So again, I do think that if the right bid came in, Thomas Partey would go. But before we started on this weekend, I think that's another thing too, is like Thomas Partey leaving once the season starts. No, I think he would have needed to go earlier in the window when you could actually get a decent replacement like Caicedo or something like that. So not going to spend too much time thinking about that. Juventus don't ever pay anything. They never come up with anything. They suck. So yeah, but interesting times with teams sniffing around our players without any money. I think that's kind of the moral of this whole stream has been people are sniffing around our players, but they don't have any cash, which really sucks. So yeah, let me know what you guys are thinking about that. Let's see. So you guys are saying. Austin says, I love the way we look in the tunnel this year. 6+ across the back 5 with Timber looking like a judo black belt, physical and imposing. I'd love to keep that. I agree. Diallo says, Italian clubs are starving from famine. They ain't got the dough. They really don't. I don't see this manifesting into anything. Because there's no way that he's going to come up with the money. And Anthony says, Romano said he would cost more than 45 million euros. And so, yeah, I mean, at this stage, like, it's late and they don't have the money. So I wouldn't be worried about it. Dama says, I don't see who's better than Partey in that position in the Premier League. If you say Rodri, then you're deluded. I mean, Rodri is better than Thomas Partey in the position. So I think Arsenal fans, like, I get that you love Thomas Partey, and I think Thomas Partey is great, but ultimately I think Rodri has proven to be the number one DM in the league, and everybody else is beneath him, in terms of like the pecking order. But Thomas Partey on his day definitely is near Rodri. It's just whether or not he can do that every game of the season, and then in the Premier League, and also do it in Champions League when it matters, when we're trying to win trophies. That is the question that I think is being posed at Thomas Partey at this stage is, when it gets down to the end of the season, or, let's say we're getting into latter stages of Champions League, Rodri played almost every minute of every game last season. And Thomas Partey at the end of the season either wasn't fit enough or mentally wasn't switched on. And so that's actually the only difference between Rodri and Thomas Partey is the mental part of it and fitness. I think that's the only real thing. But those are big things when the margins are that big, so I think we can stop comparing Thomas Partey to Rodri at this point. Gunn says, I don't think Partey is leaving. I don't think he's leaving, but I don't think it's like 110% like everybody is saying. Like, I don't think Arsenal are like, oh, we would never sell him. Like some people are saying, he definitely is like if a good bid came in, he would go. Diallo says only if we receive a big cash. Exactly. Legume says Thomas Partey is worth 60, 70 million, if you say so. Aman says we can't sell Partey at all. Not at this point. No, we couldn't. Clock says they need to start with 50. Boy says folks shouldn't be surprised if Arsenal do sell Partey if the money is good enough. Let's see. Oh yeah, you already said that about Rodri. Let's see. Aha says for this window, right wing to cover Saka is more important. As for a striker, issue is we lack someone of a different profile. Going for an established bagsman in January next summer, Tony Osimhen makes more sense. I think, yeah, that signing comes in a year or so. I don't think we're going to do it just yet. But I think like Liverpool and Man City played this way long enough where we can not be so ready to throw it away because everybody is buying a number 9. I think that's what's weird to me is I feel like because other teams are buying number 9s, we feel like we have to buy a number 9. There's more than one way to skin a cat. We don't just need to do something because another team is doing it. And Liverpool and City have played this way with just versatile forwards for long periods of time and been very successful. And so we don't have to change the way we play because everybody else is doing it. I find that to be a little bit weird and like, let's think on our own. Let's do something that, let's do our thing. Like we don't have to be like them just because that's what they're doing. But yeah, I do think a lot of it is that it's other teams are buying number 9. So like we need to buy a number 9. We're not all going to play the same. Like relax. Matt G says, why is the only broke clubs interested in our players? Because for years we haven't sold well and we've been a joke in the market. And so they're still trying to test to see if we're a joke or not. So yeah. So there you go. Aman says Rodri is better than Partey. What the F? I don't think we need to like continue to try to push him into the same category. So yeah. Martin says you never said anything good about Thomas Partey. I mean, I literally just said on his day, he's very, very close to Rodri. I think that's a big compliment, actually. But what you want me to say is that he's perfect. He never makes mistakes. He's our best player. We should never sell him. And he's just as good as Rodri is, if not and better. And I'm not going to say that just to blow smoke. Like, it's not true. He's very, very, very good. But the difference between him being as good as Rodri or better is what happens when it really matters. And every single season, he's been missing either up here or physically in those moments. And so, yeah, like I'm just going to call a spade a spade. Olu says if Partey was playing at City, he'll be ahead of Rodri. I think if he could stay fit, he'd be fine at Arsenal. Like, I think that's just, that's just it. He needs to stay fit and play like when it really matters. Like, I think that's all that it really is. Like, Blaze says, Jess, be careful because you will offend a lot of people with the statement about Rodri and Partey. I don't care. You guys know I'm going to call it how it is. You guys can be mad if you want to be, I think we're all entitled to our opinions. And like, I think there's enough proof in the pudding at this point to say Rodri is better than Thomas Partey right now, but you guys, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. That is the hour that I had planned for the show. We went through absolutely everything. Again, there's 464 of you guys in here. If you looked at my pinned comment at the top of the chat, that is my vlog for the Community Shield. And I would love you guys to hop over there if you haven't already. Go to that video, watch the vlog. My parents were there at the Community Shield at Wembley with me, and it was a really fun time. and I give my thoughts on the game and my man of the match and who played well and all that kind of stuff in that vlog. So if you guys can hop over there, like that video and all that kind of stuff, I'd really appreciate it. But before you leave, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and we will talk again. My parents are still in town, so it's, you know, up in the air when I'm going to do more shows. But I'll be at the game at the weekend, so I'll do another vlog for that, and we'll play it by ear. But I love you guys so much. Make sure you guys take care of yourselves. I love talking to you, and I can't wait to talk to you again. Bye, guys.